right, so I'm going to hand you over to Trevor, who's going to be your MC for the evening. Thanks very much, Trevor, for doing that.
Thanks, Deborah. Yes, so it is my privilege to be the moderator or MC tonight. I think not the fact that I actually have not made up my mind yet as to who I'm going to vote for is not the reason I qualify, but simply because I am a citizen of Mississauga. And I'm very keen, like you all are, to hear what some of our mayoral candidates have to say. I'd like to share with you a little bit about sort of my job as the moderator. I'm sort of the guy, the person who's going to try to keep this meeting flowing. We do have a structure set in place, and I'll share that with you in a bit. But I'm also the person who perhaps will be the one to speak up if I think something needs to be said to adjust what's maybe happening in the meeting. I already acknowledged that all of you are here despite the rain and the weather conditions. And I think you all deserve a lot of appreciation and respect for the fact that you're here. We've talked about our groups that are hosting this event. They all deserve a lot of respect for the role that they've played in this. And of course our candidates have made the trip here and are up front and center, and they deserve the respect of all of us. Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that. And so out of that respect, I know I probably won't have to worry about it, but we do expect courtesy from the group that really sort of is respect for everyone when you show that. Please, no distracting noises, boos, hisses, things like that I don't expect to hear in this group. And even with noises when you approve of something that a candidate said, please keep that to a minimum, because you'll be interrupting their little time slot that they have to address the questions, and I'm sure they want to say as much as they can. It's my job to sort of speak up and perhaps offer a warning if I think someone has forgotten about the respect we just talked about, and I'm sure it won't come to the point where I may have to ask someone to leave. We do have an opportunity. We're going to start with candidates are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to have questions that have already been assembled from the various community groups we talked about, from their leaders. And the candidates will each have 1 minute to respond to those questions. When that time is done, we will be bringing up questions that have come from citizens of Mississauga and our various departments, and it can come from you here in the audience today. If you decide that you have a question, you can please take it to the back of the room. I can see Andrea up there holding up some slips of paper, and you can write the question down there, and our volunteers will have a look at the question and sort of make a decision if it's one that can be brought into the fold tonight. We will be restricted by time, for one thing, but the reason we have this format for the questions is, number one, to sort of make sure the questions are on point with respect to the area and the issues for Mississauga, and also to make sure that questions aren't really being repeated over and over again. So that's the format that we encourage you here live in the audience. I believe we're making an attempt to stream this question and answer period. It's not really a debate. And so people who are tuning in via live stream also have a chance to ask questions. We have a little system called wildcards that we've used before in these sort of settings, and each of the candidates, and correct me if I'm wrong, has 2 wildcards. Each wildcard is basically the right to take a minute to speak to an issue that has been raised by another candidate if they think it affects them directly, and that allows them, each card allows them 1 minute. Have you guys been informed of this wildcard sort of scenario? No? Okay, so I'm letting you know now. Okay, so even if you don't have a physical wildcard, you keep track. But basically you're allowed 2 opportunities to speak for 1 minute each if you feel that you need to address something that a candidate said. Okay, and then my goal is to probably wrap up the official sort of part of this. I'm going to target around 8:45. so that the candidates will have a chance to do some closing remarks. I think we'd like to offer the other mayoral candidates who are here an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes, just about who they are and what they have to say. We do appreciate that they are interested in what's going on in our city, for sure. And with that all being said, I guess the first thing to do is we're going to do this in alphabetical order by last name. So, Mr. Brian Crombie, can I please give you 2 minutes to...
I want to read just for a second, if I could, the announcement that I got when I was invited to this event. Housing crisis, increased crime concerns, unaffordable tax increases, and traffic issues. I was frankly a little perplexed when I read that, because if that's actually true, if that's what Deborah and the other organizers really think is the challenge in Mississauga today, I just don't understand how the leading candidates can be existing city councilors, and the person who's leading the polls is someone who's been there for more than 25 years. There's a complete discontinuity here. If we really have all these problems, unaffordability, tax increases, traffic crisis, crime increasing, with all due respect to some nice people that I know, and they're nice people, they're not doing a good job. The Leafs, I've used this analogy before, the Leafs have got some really good people. They made it to the first round of the Stanley Cup. What do smart people do when the Leafs get kicked out the first round? They clean house. They get a new coach. They change the players. Last week, what did the Ottawa Senators announce? Clean house, change things, in business. If you had a business that had this kind of a record, you wouldn't keep the same people, and you certainly wouldn't promote to CEO the leading councillor that's been there for 25 years. I'm sorry. We have a problem in Mississauga, and until and unless you wake up and say, I demand different, you know what you're going to get? Same old, same old. We're going to be sitting here 2 years from now, and there's going to be an announcement that says, crime is up, housing is unaffordable, taxes are up. I've been chair of the Mississauga City Summit. I've been president of the Mississauga Arts Council. I've been in business for 40 years. I ran Hazel McCallion's last campaign here in 2010. I know what it takes to run a business, and I know what it takes to run, I think, a city. And I don't think now is the time for a career politician that's done nothing other than create the problems that we've got to continue the challenges that we've got. We need new leadership. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And I didn't get a chance to let you know, but yes, we've got very diligent and armed timekeepers, okay, who will be keeping the candidates on schedule. I'm very pleased to now introduce our next mayoral candidate, Deepika Demerla, please. Wherever you're from.
Good evening, everybody, and I want to begin by thanking the four Ratepayers Association and the Army, Navy, and veterans for hosting this event. Thank you so much to everybody who made the time to come out here so that we can have this event. And I say this respectfully, but I am disappointed that Carolyn Perry is not here. I think it's really important that if you're planning to run for mayor of any city, let alone the third largest city in Ontario, you show up. And you present your ideas, and you present your plan publicly. And you have the confidence to debate these ideas publicly, which is what all of us are going to do. You know, Mississauga's home. This is where I raised my daughter, run a small business, had the enormous privilege of serving as a member of provincial parliament, and then serving all of Ontario as a cabinet minister. And now I serve. And all of his experience, all of it, has prepared me for today. I am ready to lead. I've sat at the cabinet table. I've made difficult choices, and I've engaged in complex negotiations. And I will bring this experience to the role of mayor. I'm running to keep our property taxes low and to tackle crime. And yes, we must build more homes, but we must also be fair. Fair to the neighborhoods that are impacted by this growth.
15 seconds.
And we have to manage growth. It is this practical experience, this kind of leadership that I will bring forward to the role of mayor. I look forward to serving you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the phone that I just heard now that reminded me to turn my phone to silent. And I'm going to ask those of you who do have a phone, perhaps you'll do the same as well, please. Our next mayoral candidate to speak is Mr. Stephen Dasco.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you to our hosts. The future of our city is in our hands right now. Proudly and humbly, I've been your councillor for the past 6 years, and I was re-elected in 2022 with over 70% of the vote. I love helping people, and I get results. We need a mayor that has a heart, that is a true leader, a leader that's vocal and visible, a mayor that's committed to serving all communities in Mississauga, a leader who's accessible, and one who will bring opportunities to our city. A mayor that will invest in culture and embrace our diversity and will take us from good to great, and I'm that mayor. In the years ahead, we'll be redefining who we are as a city, and with new local job opportunities as well. I want Mississauga to be a city with world-class waterfront available to all residents of Mississauga, and that's why I'm proposing the establishment of a waterfront commission to oversee and coordinate integrated programs and services to ensure a world-class waterfront for Mississauga. I want a Mississauga that has more services for our seniors, more places for people of all ages and families to use and enjoy. I want a Mississauga that has a common sense approach to decision making, and that's why I've advocated for, and police have accepted, that we get a new police station in southern Mississauga to deal with our current crime and also the intensification that we have to come. I want a Mississauga to be home to everyone that wants to call Mississauga home, with no place for hate, and as we grow, live and retire here as well. I want to lead Mississauga forward with respect for our existing communities while we continue to build intelligently and follow local and official plans. I want Mississauga that's keeping taxes low at or below the rate of inflation while not compromising our services. Our opportunity is right now to have a world-class city. That's why on June 10th, I ask for your support for a strong new mayor for today and tomorrow, and I welcome tonight's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Our next candidate, George Tavares. Hey.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity. Can everybody hear me okay? I can just drop the mic if you like. So apparently I need to tell you a little bit about myself because I'm probably the one candidate that you don't really know. So I studied psychology, philosophy, theology, business, political science, engineering, project management, indigenous studies, and more and more and more. That's fine. I speak 4 different languages, and I traveled around the world fixing what was broken. Typically, project that didn't belong to me, but I was tasked to fix it. So, why are we here? Do you like your city? Right? Do you like the way it's being run? Do you like the high taxes, the high crime rate? Because if you do, I don't have a problem. Hire the same people that were involved in this decision making before. And that's not a shot. That is not a shot. The problem with hiring within is that you get very much the same as what you got before. So if you want real change, you need to look a little bit further out, widen your gaze, change your scope, find somebody potentially that can help. Now, could be me, could be Brian, could be any one of us, right? So I suggest first start with my website, tavaresformayor.ca. A lot of videos, a lot of ideas. If nothing more, it'll engage you with an idea of maybe there's some change that doesn't need to be drastic, just slight changes, little modifications, little ideas. Then you can go on to everybody else's site and take a look at what they can offer. But please, this isn't all the talent that's here in Mississauga. This isn't all the talent that's here. There's 20 of us. I know we can't get all 20 people here, which would be a shame because they're bright, they're brilliant, they've got some great ideas. But please give them the opportunity to take a look what they have to offer. Some great ideas. I can hum for the rest 15, but I'm just going to stop right now. So thank you very much for your time.
That's great. And our final candidate with their own introduction, Alan Tedjo.
Reach all the way over here. I was on this side of the table, so let's see how far I can get. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alvin Tejo. I am a city councilor here in Mississauga, just in Ward 2 on the other side of the river. And I'm really happy to be here today. This is an incredible opportunity to engage with our neighbors, with our friends and our family, to talk about the future of our city. We also have to talk about the past and where we've come from and how we got here today. My story in Mississauga starts when I was 4 years old, and my parents came here and moved to Mississauga because they saw an opportunity to start a business, to get an education, to buy a home. And my wife and I chose Mississauga for the same reason. We have 3 young kids, and we wanted to buy a home that was friendly and good for families in a community that was also good for them. But my biggest worry right now is my kids are growing up and they're 9, 11, and 13 years old. And when we talk about building projects taking 5, 10 years, is that there's not going to be an opportunity for them to do what I did, which is live in the community that they grew up in. And to have a city that's affordable for them to live in. My siblings are much younger than I am. They're in their 30s. And they still live with my parents. So do so many young professionals in the city. Nurses, teachers. Everyone that in the city who's of the younger generation right now is struggling more than ever before. But so many middle-income families are also struggling. Use of the food bank is through the roof. It's been the highest that it's ever been in the history of the city. Affordability is the biggest challenge that we have right now. So we need to tackle the affordability crisis. We need to tackle the housing crisis. We need to make sure that we have safe and complete communities. We need to be able to get around our city. Because we have a lot of these challenges that we need to tackle head on. And what I'd like to do is bring people together and talk about how we take on those challenges and present the most comprehensive housing plan to make sure that we get it right. And to tackle the affordability crisis, to make sure that we're giving people a real option that saves them money and lets them live in this city. Because that's what it's about. It's about our community, it's about helping each other, and making sure that we have the best city to live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great introductions, candidates. This next phase of the all candidates meeting is questions coming from our community leaders. And candidates, I think originally you were told that you'll get 1 minute to respond to each candidate, but I've been sort of informed that the initial questions from each ratepayer is maybe quite, I don't want to say tough, but let's say involved. So I think, and timekeepers, we're going to extend that to 2 minutes that they can answer, okay? So I've been told I'm in charge, so make it so. Anyways, the protocol will be each time that it's a new question, we'll get a new candidate can answer the question first. So because Mr. Crombie, you started with the introductions, you'll be the first person to answer the questions, and I'll help pass, well, you can just pass the mics down yourselves, if you don't mind, to answer the questions. I believe, Deborah, you have the first question, so I'm going to hand the Deborah from the Lakeview Ratepayers and ask her question.
Thanks, Gordon. Okay, so Lakeview is undeniably the largest growth area in Mississauga outside of city centre. So this is a 2-part question. Have you got your paper ready? Okay, can any of the candidates estimate the tax revenue to the city when the development of Lakeview and Rangeview is complete? It's actually a very simple calculation. And what will you do as mayor, as a new mayor, to mitigate the increased density that we're getting through the MZO? So Lakeview Village and also Rangeview will have a huge transition, or form a huge transition to this area. How will you influence the city funding that will put into Lakeview, the Lakeview area, the funds that we'll need to make that transition for the next 10 to 20 years of development, for things that are going to improve the area, not just tie it up with construction and bad traffic and all of those things, and make things that will help us, like traffic calming, placemaking, pop-up, creative ground floor spaces and improvements that can help us in Lakeview as taxpayers that are the taxpayers that are here right now, not the taxpayers that are going to be coming. Tough question, sorry.
Thank you. So I did a rough back of the envelope calculation. You guys can tell me if it makes sense. I just said 15,000 units, somewhere between $5,000 to $7,000 a year in property taxes. So that comes to, in my calculation, and I did it really quick, somewhere around 100 million a year. Does that answer the question correctly? Okay, okay. And the more important question, I mean, the equally important question, of course, was, what about the 16,000? And I do believe that it's too much. It really is. Well, we have an MZ. But I also believe that with the right leadership, we can right-size this. I am not going to say that I can reverse this to 8,000, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I do believe we can get it to below 16,000 if we can work with the province. Premier Ford has shown quite often that he does change his mind, that he does reverse things. So I do believe, and what I really want to impress upon Premier Ford would be fairness. Every community needs to do its part in this housing shortage. We all agree. But we shouldn't be asking some communities to do that much more. 16,000 is way too much more. So I would appeal to the local MPP and Premier Ford that we need fairness for this area. We need to see if we can right-size it. That's the approach that I would take. On the issue of making sure that infrastructure keeps up with growth, I've always said it's not enough to build homes. It really isn't. And everybody, all you hear is people talking about we need to build more homes. We need to build neighborhoods. And that means ensuring that all of the amenities that we rely on to ensure quality of life are included in everything. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach because this is not something that we're going to put a magic wand and it's going to grow overnight. This is, quite frankly, an affront to what good planning has been brought into and what visioning has been done and what really came from the community to create a brand new community here and open up the waterfront for everybody. The tax revenue that's going to be created over this is not something over 1, 2, 5 years. They're talking over 30 years, and now they're saying if they can ever build it fully out. There's so many unknowns right now, and you need somebody that knows the file inside and out, and that's been a hard and dedicated proponent of keeping to a plan. And yes, we are getting 67 acres of new waterfront parkland. That's one certainty that we know. Yes, we have an innovation corridor that is going to generate up to 9,000 jobs. Is there any timeline in place? There's not. There's a lot of unknowns. But what we do know is over the years between Rangeview and Lakeview, there's going to be an incredible amount of new people that are coming in. So Lakeview itself is the town of Belleville that's getting put between the lake and Lakeshore. Then you add on Rangeview. Right now we've got a 2-kilometer, 3-stop bus rapid transit, which I think is just, quite frankly, it's useless. I'll be very frank. And what I've been calling for is if we're going to be doing something like this that the province has adamantly said they will not change their mind, then this is time for them to step up. We should look bolder than that. We need to look at things like having the streetcar from the TTC extend through and come down East Avenue, along Lakeshore, down East Avenue, and loop right through that whole property to be a proper density carrier, and think about the proper infrastructure in place before we allow certain milestones to go forward, because this has all the makings of great planning, if we do it correctly. Thank you.
All right, so this is kind of a trick question because it all depends on who you elect as mayor, because we have one mayor that says they're going to lower property taxes, you got another mayor that says they're going to raise it, and there's another one that says they're going to increase it. So I gave rough estimates as being 62 million to 96 million. That's just a rough estimate. There was another question about traffic management. I think if anybody's been on my website, and judging by the metrics, none of you have. I have a few ideas on how to do the managing of our traffic. One of them is we have our traffic management system. It's an automated system that'll count using loop sensors, cameras, and a few other really neat little innovative ideas that we've already paid for, and it'll manage the traffic as for the traffic. So if you have more traffic, change the lights so you can move things back and forth. So that's one of the things. The other thing that we need is better transit. Again, if you saw my website, you know I have an initiative to create a better transit management system, or to use the transit management system in conjunction with the traffic management system to get people to move from one spot to another. Now, this isn't just for Mississauga, this isn't just for Lakeshore. This is for all of Mississauga. So I'd like to do that, and there's 3 other things that I wanted to do. One of them, which is really important, is, and I've seen this in China, and it works really well, every stop they have a kiosk that'll tell you when the next train is coming or when the next bus is coming, how populated the bus is, whether or not there's a chance you're going to get on or if they're just going to drive right by. And then if it's a holiday or a holiday schedule, it'll ask you where you want to go, and if that bus is not en route, it'll tell you where the next bus stop is, how to get there, which ways to go on your timeline. So this will actually help a lot of the people throughout Mississauga get through. So that's the best that I could do in my little 2 minutes, and I'm really sorry, but I know there was another question, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
We're going to trip George over here.
There's a first. I'm a goalie.
So I'd like to start by actually congratulating Councillor Dasko. Stephen and I sit next to each other at council, and I want to say on our behalf as councillors that Councillor Dasko has been fighting for this community and has done an incredible job advocating for, representing this neighborhood, especially on the issue of and should be recognized for that. The waterfront plan, the park, it's phenomenal work that's been done over several years. And I think the issue that we've got here is that we are trying to plan the best city possible and the best communities possible. And we need the provincial government to let cities do that work. Absolutely, we need to build more housing. When they give us something like this that we have to deal with, or they're mandating certain things with MZOs, absolutely we should fight that and to see what's appropriate for communities. But we also have to move on, and we also have to continue fighting for what's going to be appropriate for moving forward. So what does that mean to me? To me, that means yes and. Yes and let's get the transit done. Yes and let's build the schools. Yes and let's do the innovation center. Yes and let's get this waterfront plan done. Yes and let's improve the parks. And we need to keep working and keep moving forward in order to do that. And so that's the approach that I want to take, is taking the successes that we've had in the city, working with the provincial government and the federal government when they come in and make us do things as well, and say, all right, we're going to do that. But we also need these following things to make sure that this community is going to be livable. Because without the transit, you're right, it's not going to be livable. Without jobs in the community, it's also not going to work. So we need to work together, and we need to find ways to make sure that this community especially, remains and becomes a complete community for everyone to live in. Thank you.
I think this is a coming disaster for all of you. I think this is a complete failure of planning and of advocacy. Let me explain. I think with 16,000 units, we're talking about 25,000 or so people, maybe more, and Brightwater at Mississauga Road and Lakeshore, which is a similar kind of, I think, a coming disaster. There's not one extra lane of roadway, and there's no increase in rapid transit. I thank God I live north of the QEW, because if you live south of the QEW in Mississauga, you are going to be in a congestion nightmare, because there has been no planning for how we're going to deal with this. And I apologize, but a streetcar has a capacity of 150 people. That's not going to solve 15,000 people that are living there. So in answer to your first question, 16,000 residents, $10,000 a year, that's $160,000 a year. But it's going to double, because the other thing, hopefully they'll ask, is actually tax rates right now are going up at twice inflation, not at inflation, twice inflation, and they're misrepresenting what the increase is. So if you put that into a mathematical formula, the way you do it is the amount, 160,000, divided by the long bond minus the growth. That's 10 minus 5%, divided by 5%, that's multiplied by 20. That's $3.2 billion in net present value of tax revenue that's going to come from Lakeview. Mr. Christie, 25 acres. Nothing compared to what you've got here. What are they getting? The GO train station. The development that's at the bottom of the Donlands. Bigger area. What are they getting? They're getting the Ontario line plus a GO train station. Steeles and Yonge, a subway extension, 25,000 units. Other places, for some reason, do a far better job negotiating with the province to get what you need. Now let me give you one idea, because I've been negative, I want to be positive. There is a railway track that goes from Lakeview right up to the Long Branch line. You could have a shuttle that goes from Lakeview to Long Branch, and then the train track actually goes up to Kipling. You could turn, with good advocacy and good planning, you could turn the worst transit located area to the best transit located area, but you need strong leadership.
Thank you. Great answers, everyone. Thank you. Okay. The next question is coming up. Bill, if you want to come up and ask the question. Is it a 2-minute question as well, do you think? Okay.
But I need a minute to get back to my.
What was it? Yeah. Yeah, I was going to get to that actually. So, Deborah, do you want to give your answer to what?
Chamberlain with the Applewood Homeowners Association. Okay, so our question is, Mississauga bylaw enforcement officers are in charge of enforcing all bylaws in the city of Mississauga. This includes investigating bylaw infringement allegations and issuing warning to bylaw violators. There are very few bylaw officers. They rarely solve the issue. How can you, as mayor, help the existing residents of Mississauga by solving bylaw infringement issues efficiently, and how can the city become more accountable for issues caused by planning and development, example, air conditioning noise, temporary fencing, construction noise, dust, and grading?
Thank you. Councilor Vasco, please start.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Beryl, for the question. And when it comes to bylaw, the way the bylaw works, bylaw officers work in the city is it's reactive. So when a complaint comes in, they'll go out, they'll do the investigation, they'll do that work on it. Do we have enough? This is where I always ask staff, do we have enough? I don't believe we do. And I believe that we need to have additional bylaw people. We have essentially 2 per ward that look after what we're doing. Not enough. Recently there was a nighttime component added on. This came out of talk about fireworks that were going on and some other types of activities like that. And you know, this is where we need to have our bylaw officers and our corporate security, which we do have, properly staffed and resourced. And this is where, again, that new leadership coming in, setting the tone of what's to come, I think is very important because, yes, I will say in southern Mississauga here, especially Ward 1, we have over a third of all the community adjustment applications that do come in. And we do from time to time because I get anywhere from 80 to 300 calls and emails a day about a variety of different things. And quite often we'll find out about people that are doing work when they shouldn't be doing work, for example, on a Sunday and I actually go out and pay them a visit myself and talk to them about mornings when I can't reach our final officers. But our 311 staff as well, they need to have more resources as well because quite frankly, they're not running with what I feel is the right and efficient complement, whether it's funding and the resources that they need. And some of our resources, some of our bylaws, as we've been going, have started to get updated, but they need to be updated on a more timely basis now because, for example, I just brought in our new tree bylaws just a short while ago, public and private ones, and the public tree bylaw, the last time it had been done was in 1978. So these are times that leadership and pulling together with our council and having relationships on council to be able to get something done for everybody. The time is now. Thank you.
All right, so I think everybody's in agreement that our bylaw administration, the way that we're doing things is a little old school. I think it's time we change that, so we should do a complete revamp. If anybody who has been on my website knows that I have an intent, I plan on using technology to revamp the bylaw and the 311 opportunities that we have. It gives more visibility, it gives you a timeline. You approach it with, you scan the barcode, you say what the problem is, You assign a timeline, you give it to whoever the counselor is in the area, they assign it to the bylaw officers, and the idea is that you can identify whether or not there's true movement on your problem. So that's the first one. The revamping of that thing, the bylaw administration, actually I got that, okay, never mind. So the idea is that you can now identify whether or not your bylaw officers are doing their job properly or in a timely manner. If there's some issues that need to be resolved, like they can't get to it fast enough, if they got there and it wasn't there wasn't enough pictures, you can argue and say that it doesn't happen, it's not happening at an appropriate time. And then my favorite part is at the very end of the year, you can do an assessment on your counselor and your bylaw officers to see if they've done their job properly. And then you give them a pass-fail criteria, and then at the very end of the year, we have a quick, here's the best counselors that are approachable, get the stuff done on time, whatever, and then top 3 get a reward or something along those lines. Anyways, the idea is that we give them gold stars. Good? Perfect.
I'm always laughing as I get the mic from George.
Good.
Yeah, our municipal enforcement officers are, we don't have enough. We did hire an extra 10 for overnight to deal with a lot of noise complaints that people had. But, we talk about better service and how do we make sure that we get better service for residents. One of the biggest challenges that we had right after we got sworn in, we did switch over to having 311 dispatch be out of the city. And I think that was a mistake that we need to reverse and try to bring back into the city. So if you call 311, it works 7 to 7, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. So first of all, I think we should make that 24/7. Brampton has it 24/7, Toronto has 24/7. We're just as big of a city and just as important of a city to make sure that we have that service. But the problem with the service right now, I was at Jack Darling, there were 50 cars parked in the middle of the fire route. And I called, it was on the weekend, so it was out of the service hours. And they said, I'm at Jack Darling Park. And they said, what's the address for that? I'm like, well, it's Jack Darling Park. It's one of the biggest parks we have in the city. I'm like, well, sir, can you please Google that for me? I'm like, you're on a computer. And he's like, yeah, but I'm in Kingston, so I have no idea where that is. And I'm like, I don't want to say I'm a city councilor and say you have to go do this, but there's got to be an easier way to do this, right? So we need better service. That's the thing. One of that is to make sure that 311 people that actually live in the city of Mississauga, who understand it and know the city, and dispatch the right people to make sure that we get the service. And I'm also taking the opportunity to say thank you because we have so many challenges and priorities, and people are feeling them, and it's the city people that are feeling them, and this is also one of the challenges. Generally speaking, we want to be a friendly city. So our approach, generally speaking, is to educate residents as much as possible. We always start with
the least we can do is respect the fact that people still need to move around in cars and make room for the cars, along with everything else. Thank you.
Well, it really is important to have somebody that actually understands and works in the southeast end of the city to lead us forward. Because quite frankly, what has come to the region, and these regional councillors along with me, supported my motion to review Dixie. And this is where we've got 2 lanes, a center lane, and then painted bike lane on, which is unbelievably dangerous. A poor lady named Penny was killed on a scooter a few years ago. And this is, for me, this was an affront. I asked our regional staff, and I agree with Alvin, that we should have our roads downloaded. 100% it makes sense for Mississauga to do that. I've been advocating for that for years since I've been on council because it makes sense. We're also funding Brampton's roads, regional roads, Caledon's roads on Mississauga's tax time, and that to me is an affront to our taxpayers. But quite frankly, what I've asked for, and we have a report that's actually coming back in September. So anybody that's saying, this hasn't been dealt with, it has, and clearly some haven't done the homework on this, to know that yes, there was a report coming back in September to have that review done. And that's to say that we should have a dedicated cycle or multi-use trail on one side, have a sidewalk on the other side, possibly go back to 4 lanes, and put a set of lights in at 1400 Dixie, which is also known as the fairways. These are some of the things that we're looking at. And then also, when we get past that up towards Dixie, there's a rethink there as well when it comes to both the Applewood and Sherway communities, because they are going to be significantly impacted through all this growth as well as you get into the Dixie Mall area. And then on top of that, we've also got the Orchard Heights community as well, which is something that will end up get the impact of doing it now as they're doing the highway interchange work as well. So yes, absolutely, these are topics that we very much have to get dealt with. Thank you.
All right, Julie, you're right. It's not going to get any better. And even with these ideas, they're great. It's going to be at least 6, maybe 10 years before they actually can implement it. So it's not going to get any better. Deborah, I remember when the MTOs first came out, how upset you were. I loved your passion. I understood it. I felt it. It's not going to get any better. So how do we get it better? I don't like blaming anybody, right? I don't like blaming anybody, but I do like looking for solutions. And again, if you looked on my website, you find I have 2 initiatives. One of them was the virtual bus rapid transit system. The idea was that we use the transponders to gauge the speed, the lights, to change the lights at the right time so that it's almost as though it's a dedicated bus lane. We can do that with the traffic management systems. We can do that up and down Bloor, up and down Cawthra. We can keep right on going. If we do this properly, and I already got an email from somebody in Toronto that said they were interested in this idea so that we can do that up and down Brown's Line. So there are some things that we can do without doing any digging, and this is all non-infrastructure, this is all software. We can implement it today. There's no environmental assessments, there's no pricing out there for any of that stuff. This is infrastructure, this is technology that already exists. We bought and we implemented in 2019, and we just haven't configured it yet. So there is some hope. And I don't want you to think that we've completely forgotten about you. And regardless of who wins this, whether I win it or not, I'm advocating for this to happen. Regardless of whether or not I win, this is something I'm really pushing for. Good? Perfect.
Thank you. Typically, I believe you want to use your wild card. I get excited about the wild cards. Here we go.
I just want to clarify a few things. The first is I am aware that there's a plan to bring back 4 lanes on Dixie. And that's the folly. The first visit is taken away. It's really interesting that, here we're talking about bringing back 4 lanes on Dixie, and at the same time, council is thinking about removing 2 lanes on Bloor Street, which by the way is And I also, just want to say that a few times it's been said that you sort of have to know and be the councillor for a certain area to be an effective mayor. I think Mississauga is a very good city. And what the mayor really needs is to have a level head and bring a pragmatic approach. No candidate is going to know the details of every corner. There's Northwest Mississauga, there's Northeast Mississauga, there's Cooksville. So I think it's really important to keep in mind that every area has its own needs. But what we need is a mayor who can be empathetic, who understands, and who brings the facts to them.
I'm just going to untangle this, actually. Counselor? All right, the next one.
I disagree that it's a provincial-wide problem. I think this is our issue, and I think you've got to ask yourself, so why did Vaughan get a subway extension? Why did Rick Vaughan and Richmond Hill get the subway on Yonge extension? Why did Markham get all-day two-way go? It's because they had a quid pro quo. They went to the provincial government and said, we're going to build the density in the right spot because we know you need that density, but in exchange, we want to get trains in. Mr. Christie said, we're getting a GO train station, as I mentioned. The place at the Don Lands, at the bottom of the Don River, they're getting a GO and the Ontario line. I don't think you've been well served. You've got a councillor that's running for mayor that's in a #1 position right now that has been on council longer than anyone other than Hazen McCallion, who has been part of politics and knows everybody. She hasn't done it. You've got a councillor that's in second place that was part of the Liberal government that hasn't been able to convince the Liberal government for it. You've got other people that, for some reason, aren't able to negotiate, advocate, whatever it is, with the provincial government to get what you deserve, which is good transit, and that's the only solution.
You're good? Okay. All right, thank you very much. So that's, every group has had a chance to ask, I think, their first question. We're now going to go into the second round of questions, and I am going to remind our candidates we're down to the 1-minute response. So think quickly and be concise. I have no idea what these questions are. So we're starting with Luann. Okay, I don't need to hand you the mic.
Stop everybody's dirty look at me for ringing the bell. In a municipal election, why are some of you declaring political designations when you are supposed to be fighting for our city against federal rules that are made that are not beneficial to our city?
All right, you got the first.
Well, I'm certainly not declaring any political designation, so it doesn't apply to me. I do think that one candidate is actually sending out emails that they got from the Liberal leadership campaign. And I know that because this person that's got the emails would never have gotten that email from that councillor if it hadn't got it from the Liberal leadership campaign. I think that's completely inappropriate. I think that you've got some people here that are effectively running on political partisan matters. There was a debate in UTM 2 weeks ago that they excluded everyone except for 2 of them, and it was organized by a former Queen's Park Liberal staffer. And she had in the fall been very partisan in her criticism of the whole criticism against people that were against fourplex. You've got a system right now where I think some of these people are bringing party politics into Mississauga, and I think that is wrong. And I think that we've got to stop it. And I would like to suggest that maybe think, just for a second, like George said, about someone independent, someone new, just for a chance.
Thank you. You know, when the asylum seeker crisis was unfolding, and it's still ongoing here in Mississauga, I was one of the few people who stood up to the federal government. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, I called out Prime Minister Trudeau and said he is not being fair to Mississauga. Same thing on criminal code reform and bail reform. I have called out Prime Minister Trudeau and said he's not moving fast enough. The only thing I care about as a city councillor is what's best for Mississauga. And the only thing I will care about as mayor is what's best for Mississauga, and I have proven it. I have proven it. In fact, people have come to me and said, well, how could you do this? How could you call the federal government up? I said, well, if they're wrong, if they're not being fair to Mississauga, I will call them out. Thank you.
I firmly believe if you're not looking after the best interests of Mississauga, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing for everybody in the community. Having party affiliation serves absolutely nobody. At the provincial and at the federal level, governments change. And if you happen to put your stake into the ground on a particular party, what happens? You get left behind. Not you get left behind, this city gets left behind. This is something that we unfortunately had that happen to us. This is the time to change that chapter over into something new, to be able to get what we should be getting for infrastructure, for other amenities that we should be having. We've been left out in the cold for a long time. Now's the opportunity to have somebody that's going to lead for everyone, not by kicking somebody in the head, but by working with somebody, sitting down, working through things to make sure that we keep delivering for the city of Mississauga time and time again. Thank you very much.
All right, Luann, thanks for the question. So, one of the big things that I have is I didn't take any donations or volunteers to work on my platform, so I have no conflicts of interest whatsoever. So all of the ideas are exactly mine. I have no party affiliation. I don't need it. That's fine. But I do have something to say. I do believe that we should have a 2-term limit. So councillors, 2 terms, mayor, 2, and then you're out. But if you're going to do something like that, thank you, go ahead, applaud that, yes. But if you're going to do that, they have to worry about their political careers too. So they have to look forward towards their political career. So I'm just saying, there's a little bit of yin and yang here. We might not be getting the best versions of them by following that. So I'm just going to leave that with you guys. Is that all right? Got it? Good.
So I'm actually going to say a little bit in defense of partisan politics at the other levels, because absolutely municipal politics is not partisan, and it shouldn't be. And in Alberta, where they're trying to introduce it in Edmonton and in Calgary, everyone's fighting it because I think it's inappropriate for me to find ways to work together. That's the system that we have, and that's the system that works. But if you want to change your province for the better, you want to change your country for the better, you have to get involved. And in order to get involved, we have a partisan system. You join a party. I don't think that's something that you should be shamed for if you want to get involved and make your community better. It doesn't matter what party it's for, but if you want to get involved, if you want to be an elected MP or an MPP, that's the path to do that. And we've had lots of experience here up and down this table, people who've worked for various stripes of governments. But in the city, the important thing is to be able to have the right relationships. And I've worked with the federal government in order to get more housing funding. I've worked with the provincial government in order to get more transit funding. That's what we need. You need that type of leadership who can work with everyone, and that's what I will do. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Our next question, I don't know who it's coming from. Deb? Tanya?
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm the president of the Orchard Heights Homeowners Association. And our question is, what is your plan to get developers to put shovels in the ground after approval of build applications? Will their approval be withdrawn after a certain amount of time if no building occurs?
Thank you, I've lost track. Deepika, I think it's your turn to go first. Thank you.
So I'll just frame this a bit, which is to say that municipalities do not have power over a developer to tell them to build. We do approvals, and we can provide all of the approvals, but the decision as to what date a builder decides to put shovels in the ground is all theirs. We have no control. That said, we can provide incentives perhaps incent them to build faster, and that's what my plan does. One of the key planks in my housing plan is to remove and waive the development charges for purpose-built rentals. And it's on a first-come, first-served basis, and it's a small pot of money, it's a finite pot of money. So the idea is you use it or lose it, so the first few to build in Mississauga purpose-built rentals, once this opens up, would be the ones to get it, so that would incent them to build faster. And on the use it or lose it, only the province can bring that legislation in. It is something that I have advocated for, and I will continue to advocate for. Thank you.
Well, for me, it doesn't take a mayoral election to call for that. I actually have brought forward a motion that we've sent in on behalf of all of council to the province to bring in use it or lose it legislation, because we have absolutely no time period right now. I always talk about a particular example, and that's right at Cawthra and Atwater. And that's a particular piece of property that was approved for 400 units. That was in 1992, and it's still waiting to be built. So yes, the city of Mississauga, we approve things, or if it goes to, for example, a tribunal, they end up approving things. But in terms of pulling a permit, getting a shovel in the ground, this is what we have to focus on. These are the issues that we're looking at right now. And so this is something that, right now, this is the opportunity, and having a mayor that is going to be able to do that, work on everybody's behalf, not just on behalf of Mississauga, but on behalf of the province of Ontario, to make sure that we move forward in a responsible way, in a timely way. This is our time to do it. Thank you.
All right, get ready to laugh, though. All right, the Ontario government passed the Reduced Red Tape Act about 4 weeks ago. One of them was the Use It or Lose It Act, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but it has happened, and it hasn't passed yet, but it's a brilliant way to do it, and I like what the two councillors currently have said, because it's right. It's accurate, it's good. So the Use It or Lose It is a good opportunity for builders to start building in a timely manner, or they lose their opportunity. So that's the first one. The second one is I also created incentives for purpose-built rentals and for housing the homeless. So the idea is that as you build it quicker, build it faster, you get a better, you get tax incentives, possibly even removing entire building fees. So there's some ideas that we have there. It's on my website, please, tavaresformayor.ca. I'm not doing it any justice.
So yes, happy to support Councillor Desco and his motion on use it or lose it. I was talking with CDC about that the other day in terms of how important it is for us to proceed on that policy. So well done to everyone who's working on that. We need to make sure we're building the right types of housing. Right now, we have 32 cranes in the sky. 31 of them are market housing, condos. Only one of them is rental. So that doesn't add to the types of housing that people want. So we need to make a different stream to help build more rental, to build more affordable, to build more supportive housing. Because the pro formas, the way they calculate how they're going to get the money in order to build those buildings are different. They need a different stream in order to get that done. And we need to talk to the developers and say, what are some of the challenges? We know that it takes up to 10 years from concept to keys in terms of getting this building done. So one of the ideas that I have is to try and bridge these programs together so that you can do your site plan approval at the same time you're doing your building permit, at the same time you're doing your zoning application. We can do that. We can pilot that. We've seen that in other jurisdictions. We can get that done to get more housing built faster. Thank you.
Use it or lose it may sound good, but it's a complete disaster. It'll make the housing crisis worse. And the reason why is developers need to sell 50 to 70% of all their units before they get bank financing. And if they lose it after they've sold 40% and they're not quite there, they're not going to build. No Monday threats from any of these people on this table are going to make a developer force a bank to give them $100 million to build. And you know what? With a rental, it's the same thing. They've got to have a pro forma that they can give to a bank that says, I know it's going to get absorbed over time. I was at a conference today, the land development conference today. They said that we have got 1 million people in the next 5 years that aren't going to be able to get a home because we're building less than half of what we need. The only solution is development fees. We've got to get rid of them on purpose-built rental and any condo less than 500,000. And number two, we've got 30% of every new unit is taxes. You know the axe the tax that we've heard in Ottawa? We got to axe the taxes on housing because the government is taking way too much. It's increasing the cost for young people. It's the most regressive tax system we have, and that's why we've got the problem.
Thank you. I'll just point out that I'd like to suggest there's 10 minutes left of this format for questions so that there will be time for our other male candidates to have a 2-minute presentation before you guys have your time to say bye. So 2 more questions.
Okay. Many of you are city councilors. Many people have said they are a great councilor, therefore I will vote for them as mayor. What challenges will you face in the role of mayor that you don't presently face as a councilor? For those that are not city councilors, how do you feel the role differs? We need to start asking our politicians interview questions.
Thanks, Beryl. Great question. Stephen?
I always look at things as what's not just good for the ward, but what's always good for the city. And having a mayor that truly looks at not just where we are as a city, but where we're going as a city and leading that city and being able to collaborate with other councillors around our council table. This is really what we need going forward, to show that leadership, to be able to set the tone for what we're going to do and go forward, to be able to build things that make sense. Building a great downtown. We've got a good downtown. It's a lot of tall buildings, but there's no great downtown. It's setting that course into motion, getting transit back on track, leading to be able to bring in more employment and jobs. And that will fill not just one ward, but this is something that we look at holistically for our whole city. We've got official plans, local area plans, and also as we're looking at growing out to the next phase of the city is what's that vision? And I have the vision, and I'll work like crazy to make sure that we get there because I know that we've got it right here in our hands. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. So I checked the YouTube videos. There are no how to be a strong mayor in Mississauga, so that doesn't help me. But I will say this, and you've seen this in big business, and you'll see it everywhere that you're working. You're a product of your environment. And if the environment that you're working in is the city of Mississauga, and they're having difficulties in understanding how to create change, hiring within won't make it better. So I'm not quite sure if that answered your question. I'm hoping it did, but that's my answer. Good? Good.
I did laugh again, George. Thank you.
Good.
You know, the challenges of the mayor are enormous. There's 11 councillors who each manage their own communities and understand their neighbors and their specific issues. As mayor, you need to understand the challenges of all of them. You need to be able to work with all of them. You need to be able to prove that you can get things done for everyone. You need to be the person who represents the city to the provincial government and to be able to empathize and talk to everyone on behalf of the city, whether or not they voted for you or not, because that's who you have to serve. And I'm incredibly invested in this race because I'm invested in this city. I've lived here almost my entire life. My parents are still here, they're aging seniors, my kids are trying to grow up in the city, and I want to be here for them. And I'm exactly the median age of people in the city of Mississauga, and I love this city. And I want to make sure that we do everything we can, that we have a city that's affordable, that's livable, that has housing, that everyone can live in. That's the #1 goal. And we need a mayor who can bring people together in order to do that. Thank you.
The city of Mississauga is a $1 billion corporation with 5,000 employees, and the taxes are out of control. Elect a business person, don't elect a career politician. I think one of the best mayors that Canada's had is Nenshi, who came in from the outside. I think one of the best prime ministers we've had is Brian Mulroney, who came in from the outside. One of the best finance ministers we've had is Paul Martin, who came in from the outside. They all had great business experience. Even Hazen McCallion was a business person until she was 55 before she ran for mayor. We remember her as being mayor for a long time, but she was a business person for the vast majority of her life. I wasn't going to run. But then I took a look at some of the challenges that we've got, and even though these people are wonderful people, I don't think they're up to running the city of Mississauga with the challenges that we've got. I think, and if you don't like me, George is excellent. Jamie Dukey here is an efficiency expert. Where's I'm Alive is one of the most dynamic, inspirational people I've met. There are outside people that you can give some consideration to. Don't think you've only got to go with the existing people. Nenshi, 2 weeks before Election Day, was at 8% of the polls, and he ended up winning.
I'm going to share a story. I'm the councillor for Ward 7. It's an area that is starved for green space. And there was a proposal to buy some green space in Ward 10. And a number of councillors came to me and said, you know, you really shouldn't be voting in support of buying more green space in Ward 10 because there's a finite pool of money that the city buys green space from. And every dollar that's going to buy something in Ward 10 means there's less money to buy green space in Cooksville, which is really, really cash starved. But I decided to support the purchase of green space in Ward 10, and that's because it was such a great deal. The price was so low. I would have been ashamed to let it go just because, I'm thinking just about my ward. So just an example, I think all of us, just because we are councillors doesn't mean we vote on everything. And it is incumbent upon us to do our homework and not just vote along with the ward council always, but actually to see what's best for the city, and that's what I've done. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to bring up our last question now. I know there were a lot of questions that we couldn't get to, and I didn't even get a chance to see them all, so I apologize to those of you who had thoughtful questions for our candidates. Perhaps there will be other opportunities where you can meet with the candidates either individually or perhaps in a group like this and have your question addressed then. Deborah, you've got the last question to ask everyone before we move on to the next phase.
And I'd like to add, we will be providing the questions that have been supplied to us to the candidates, and we hope that they can respond, and we'll add them to a website or try and put them out. There are some other opportunities for last minute or candidates meetings coming up this week. This is a question from Eagle Spirits, the Indigenous community. How will you work with the Indigenous community in the healing process, as this community has the largest amount of Indigenous people living here? What will you do to improve relationships with them?
How many minutes do I have? 1? Go ahead. Not enough time. There's absolutely not enough time. I was fortunate enough to study or get my certificate in Canadian Indigenous Studies and the history. I think everybody needs to learn. This is going to take a lot longer than 2 minutes, and I'm sorry. Sorry, 1 minute, even worse. I'm trying to squeeze it out there. I do think that the city of Mississauga should pay for anybody that wishes to take that online course. It's an incredible course. It's completely heartbreaking to witness what the Indigenous people have gone through. But the first step in learning, healing is learning. And then we need to focus in on a few things. I love the idea of the healing lodges. I think it's a really important opportunity for that. But until you understand the history and why it's so different than the American history, which is tragic, I can't give it enough justice. 10 seconds, 15 seconds isn't going to be an hour wouldn't give me enough time to explain it. But my apologies for that. Thank you.
So I think we're just beginning in terms of truth and reconciliation in this country. In this city, we need to do a lot more. We know we need to do a lot more.
That's not me.
Before I was elected, I was working at Ryerson University, and we went through a lot to try to understand the hurt and the pain that was caused there, and to start building a new relationship with Indigenous people in Canada. And we renamed the university Toronto Metropolitan University. But it wasn't just about the name. We don't want just token actions. We need real relationships. We need real ways to show that we're learning and we're understanding, and we want to continue to build and heal. And that includes providing space, having a building, having resources for the Indigenous community to thrive in the city with what they need in terms of learning and teaching, and providing us, everyone else, settlers in this country, with that relationship so that they understand, and we understand, more importantly, how to build and heal and move forward. Thank you.
U.S. President Lincoln, I think, said that the way they treated their black brothers and sisters was the original sin of the United States. I think if we actually admitted that the way we treated our Indigenous brothers and sisters was one of the original sins, if not the original sin of Canada, I think that we would be close to the truth and reconciliation that we need to have. I'll give you two suggestions, if I could. I've toured the Indigenous Appreciation exhibit. It's in Fort Edmonton. It's in a valley in Edmonton. It's incredible. And they have beautiful artifacts from their heritage, but also a whole thing of a residential school. So you've got the beauty of your culture, but also you are confronted with what we have done collectively for them. And frankly, the Totem Pole Museum that is in Stanley Park is absolutely beautiful, and everyone comes away from that really moved. Why don't we have something like that at Britannia Farms, which is 120 acres right on Huron, Ontario. It's given to the people of Peel for educational purposes. We've done nothing with for 20 years. It's sat fallow. We could have an Indigenous Appreciation Zone. We could have a winter fair. We could have a sugar bush. Let's exhibit ourselves.
You know, as Mississauga, we're one of the few large cities with an Indigenous name, and we take great pride in it. And I think we need to move from tokenism to real change, and I'm going to share an example. I sat on the board of the TRC, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. And like many meetings, we started our meeting with a land acknowledgement. Okay? There was an item on the agenda which was naming of trails. And the report said that some Indigenous names had been considered, but they had been rejected because they were too long and it would be hard for our emergency responders, our first responders. So we just did the land acknowledgement, but we couldn't get ourselves to name something because the question is, who is it difficult for, right? So then I moved a motion saying, no, you know, we have to find a way to accommodate these names. And so we did change staff's recommendation to not go with the Indigenous names, and in fact we did go with the Indigenous names. And I think that's the kind of leadership I would bring as mayor. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question, and I must say, as one of the people that helped found Eagle Spirits, along with Barry Gilbert, as he's done a lot of work on truth and reconciliation, I'm proud to have had incredible support and endorsement by former Chief Carolyn King. And in terms of a lot of the work that we've started to do and we continue to do, one of that is an Indigenous Arts Walk that we have down at the mouth of the Credit River. The first piece was called This Dance, and that's in front of the Fram building where the old St. Lawrence Starch was. That was carved by a local carver named Sid, some might know him as Sawmill Sid. Much more is coming. That is being worked on through the guidance of Philip Cote. And then as well, I also supported having our flag being flown. That's up at Mississauga, and that's for the Mississaugas of the credit. And also the Jim Toby Lakeview Conservation Area, which is opening in July of next year, is going to have an Indigenous theme there as well, with the gathering area as well. And much, much more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to depart a little bit right now because of that question of my role as moderator, and I'm going to just speak a little personally myself on that topic. I like the question to the Mayorals, what is the city can you do? But I would like to invite all of you as citizens of this country to take it upon yourselves to pay a little bit more attention if you need to and learn what's going on. I've had the opportunity, for instance, I've taken a class that the Eagle Spirits has offered. It's an opportunity to learn. But for yourselves, if there's an article in the paper, read it. If there's a song on the radio, listen to the words. If there's an art exhibit in your neighborhood, attend and just go. I think it's not just the great organizations like Eagle Spirits or the City of Mississauga or whatever that are going to be the solutions to the problems that exist. I think it's going to come from each and every one of us as individuals. I invite you all to play your parts. Okay, so the next part of this, I would like to invite to start with, I believe we have 3 mayoral candidates that were not part of the panel up here. But we'd like to invite each of them to come up and just speak for 2 minutes to introduce themselves, because we do appreciate the fact that you do care about what's going on and is happening in the city and perhaps a role you can play in it. So I'm going to ask, and I apologize if I don't know the names. Is there a gentleman named Mitch? You're running for mayor, is that correct? Would you like 2 minutes? Come on up.
Thank you, everybody. I haven't been here since I was 6. I was Santa, sitting on Santa's lap up here for the Christmas. Did anybody come to those Christmas things here? We used to do those here. Yeah, those were pretty cool. Do they still happen? Are they still a thing? No? Why? Can't afford it. It's always about money at the end of the day. Sorry. I'm one of those politicians well, I'm not even a politician, I'm a musician, so I swear candidly, and forgive me for that. I just be candid for you guys. I got involved because I want to understand. Like Brian said, if you don't understand the problems, you're halfway gotten out the door. You don't even know what you're doing. To be frank, I don't understand a goddamn thing that's going on. From the municipal level to the provincial level to the federal level, it just seems like it's just discord. Not talking to one another, not listening to one another. I don't know how to change that other than by being candid and inviting people to get more politically involved, candidly, not aggressively, not like, I'm a liberal, so I can't talk to the conservatives, and I don't mean to be pedantic. I just think the fundamental problem is that I can understand it is that nobody's listening to one another. And you don't listen by talking. You don't listen by telling people what to do. I don't know how to negotiate with the provincial government. I don't know how to get Doug Ford to care about us. I don't know how to do that other than just ignore the system that is functioning and start listening to one another in the municipal level. It would be great to re-empower the municipalities. There are workarounds, provincial legislation to empower the municipalities, but that's a provincial thing, so we need to get the provincial government to change its mind. It's just like, this is just very frustrating. I don't know if you guys all feel frustrated, but I feel frustrated. So I really want you guys, like the gentleman invited you guys to do, 50 seconds, so the gentleman invited you to do your own research. Do your own research. Get politically involved. I know I'm talking to you guys are here, so you guys are doing it. But we gotta get other people talking. We gotta get other people listening. We gotta make this fun again. Otherwise the train's going off the tracks. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the guys up here. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Sir, I believe you're running for mayor too. Would you like 2 minutes? We'd love you to hear from you.
Be alive! Be alive, everyone. I am Winston Harding, and I want to thank the Lakeview Association for inviting us here tonight. Well, my program here is simple. We need the subway in Mississauga. I have spoken to the former premier, and I have said to her that there should be a special lottery to fund the subway. We do not want any money to come from taxpayers. We need affordable housing. We need more help for seniors. We need more benches in the parks, washroom, and we need more lights. When you're going in the city in the winter time, people need shelter. so that they don't have to stand at the bus stop and the cold wind hitting them. I say to you, I will stand for you in City Hall, and my doors are open. Winston Harding will speak for you. So vote for me. And for taxes, we're talking about the climate change, what we are having. I'm saying to you, each and every one of you, I want you to be happy. I want you to share your dreams with your children, grandchildren. And I want Mississauga to be a vibrant city. Away with the other city. We need to build our city. We're talking about the lakefront, what is coming there. Transportation. How are you going to have proper transportation without having a subway in Mississauga? They're trying to put Low Street as one lane. We need 2 lanes. We need it to stay the same way. I'm passionate about that.
15 seconds.
And I say thank you all for hearing me, and be alive and be blessed. Thank you.
So I believe you're running for mayor too. We'd love to hear from you if you'd like to speak for 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Dookie. I'm running for mayor. www.dookieformayor.com. One of the common themes you heard tonight from the sitting councilors is we need to do better. Why? Because they have not been doing it. You have an opportunity to make a change in this election. The time is now. You need a change. The decision is yours. You can't go with the same old, and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You have an opportunity to take a look at our platforms. My platform is simple: cutting your taxes, rolling back your taxes. Some of the council says that is not possible. I tell you, it is possible. Based on the fact the way your property taxes are calculated is based on your property value. It's not, you don't get more services, you don't get different services. You pay more in taxes, you get the same snow plow, the same cleaning, the same road cleaning, the same garbage pickup. One of my plans is to have the region of Peel amalgamated, where you will go from 3 mayors and 1 region of Peel chair to 1 mayor and 1 administrative council. Amalgamation of Peel, we see that you don't vote for a city councillor, automatically get a regional councillor that sits 1 day a week and collects $60,000 extra a year. You're going to end up with 1 efficient council. You're going to have less that you're going to pay in expenses. You're going to have reduced cost of operation. I will remove the stormwater levy. I will work upon amending the bylaw where your 3-hour parking limit will be gone. If you want to park on the street in the night, you will purchase a permit which will generate revenue.
15 seconds.
Additional revenue streams will be a municipal insurance, where your insurance for auto will go down over a period of years. A municipal lottery. All this will generate $103 million in excess to offset your 0 municipal property taxes. Again, vote Jamie Dookie, June 10th.
Thank you. At this time, before candidates, I give you a chance to do your final speeches. I would like to say on behalf of all the groups, thank you to all of you for coming out today. We really do appreciate you speaking to everybody here who was interested in what you had to say. Not everybody who was invited to come today chose to. So it means a lot to us that you did come today, so thank you. We're going to start with you, sir, and we'll just go down the table for your final speeches. And I just want to remind myself that candidates have 2 minutes each for your closing remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for including us. I really appreciate it. There have been some debates that haven't included everyone, and I think that this has been very democratic, and you've been a wonderful audience listening to us, so thank you so much for that. I've been reasonably negative, and I apologize for that, but I think it's called for. But I also want to end with some vision, if I could, because I think that's one of the other challenges that we've had in Mississauga. I think we used to aspire to greatness. Hazen McCallion built Celebration Square, City Hall, the Living Arts Center, the Hershey Center. What have we done of late? I don't think that much. Marcus G. in the Globe and Mail 2 weeks ago talked about how Toronto didn't have a there on the waterfront. We should have it there on the waterfront. We've got an 18-acre piece of property, 150,000 square foot warehouse that sits out into the lake. It's owned by the federal government. It could be retail entertainment. It could be Fisherman's Wharf. It could be South Street Seaport. It could be Granville Island. But we have to have a mayor and a council that stands up and says to the federal government, this is what we want it to be. Britannia Farms, 120 acres. It sat fallow. It's actually owned by you. It was given to the people of Peel for educational purposes. If it was in Toronto, it would be Riverdale Zoo or Black Creek Pioneer Village. How come it just sits with barbed wire all around it? The Pinchin Farms, Riverdale, and Arundel Conservation Area is the third largest urban park in all of North America. Only Stanley Park and Central Park in Manhattan are bigger. But did you know that? Do you go and visit it? Is it programmed right? Is it got the right facilities? You know, who was it spoke about we need washrooms and park benches. You go to Central Park, there's an art gallery, there's all that kind of stuff. That's what we could have. And then I think the most transformational change for Mississauga, we've been talking about for 25 years and nothing has happened, is all-day, two-way, frequent GO train service on the Milton-Mississauga line. I would add a station at Cochrane. If we had that, we'd have a surface subway in Mississauga. It would solve a lot of the traffic problems. It would be economic development. Those would be the nodes for development. Markham got it. Richmond Hill got it. Brampton got it. Why? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with Mississauga?
We have a clear choice in this race between Carolyn and I. It's a two-woman race, and we couldn't be more different. I have the experience, the ideas, and the vision to be the mayor of this city. In over a decade of being elected, I wanted a reputation of getting things done. And the things that I'm proudest of accomplishing are not the ones that were splashiest or big projects. But they were the ones where I was told it couldn't be done, and I got it done. As a new councillor, I was told that there is no way I could get a BIA in 6 months, that it had been tried multiple times and failed. I got it done. I wanted to do a street festival on Dundas Street, and I was told by staff, no way. There's no way we can shut down Dundas Street. I got it done. There was an illegal weed store in my riding. The police was trying to shut it down for a very long time, and I was told it's not going to get shut down. I worked with law enforcement. We used some unorthodox methods. We got it shut down. And it is this kind of attitude and this experience that I will bring to the role of mayor. And yes, I am running to keep your property taxes low. And I am running to tackle crime. And I am running to build more houses, but also neighborhoods. But I have a greater ambition. I want to build a Mississauga where everyday people can get ahead. You know, I came to this country as a young woman
15 seconds.
with big dreams and no plans, but an unshakable faith and belief that Canada would have opportunity for me. And I want to build a Mississauga where there's opportunity for young families and everybody to get ahead, build a better life for themselves and their children. And that's why I'm running. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us here for tonight's discussion. This election truly is a transformational election that we're going to have for our city. We know where we've been for 50 years. It's where we're going for the next 50 years. It's how we're going to redefine ourselves as a city. It's where we're going to have that common sense approach to city building. In our path ahead, we're going to have great opportunities. We really will. But we're also going to have challenges. And those challenges, as we do, we face them together. And this election, it's really an opportunity to elect a strong new voice for today and for tomorrow. This isn't a 2-year challenge or a 3-year challenge. This is an 8 to 10-year challenge. The future of Mississauga, everyone, this is really it right now. The stakes are high. I put my name forward to be on the ballot on June 10th. Vote Stephen Dasko to be our next mayor of Mississauga. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
right, so far we've heard some great ideas about housing, transit, roads, taxes, crime. The beauty about a situation like this is come June 11th, regardless of who wins, each one of these people that are currently on council are now obligated to be committed to doing those things that they said they would do. Good? So the future's bright, regardless of who wins this one. Although I'd like to be the one that wins. I'd like to point out that we do have another election. Ward 5 is having an election. I think I see somebody here. Can somebody make themselves available? Say hi. All right, so that's Shelley Scott England, correct? Is there anyone else? All right, so anyways, I just wanted to point out that she was here, and we do have another election. TavaresForMayor.ca, I'm not giving myself enough credit for the work that I do, but that's just me being humble. But I thank you very much for coming here and listening to me carry on, because I can be a bit of a hand. But thank you very much for your time.
So I'm going to start by saying thank you absolutely everyone for coming tonight, to Trevor, to Beryl, and Luann. I think I'm going to have nightmares of this bell tonight as I go to bed, thinking about it's going to be my new alarm in the morning. And really thank you to my colleagues for being here as well, all the candidates who are in the room. And I have to respectfully disagree with Deepika around your choice, because you do have more than two choices. There are 20 people running in this election, and I respect your opinion and your right to pick who you feel is going to be the best mayor in the city of Mississauga. So you have a choice. You have time. You have just under 2 weeks to decide who you want to lead this city. Who do you feel is going to fight for you? Who is going to represent you? Who understands the challenges that you're going through with paying your bills, with seeing whether or not your kids or your grandkids can afford a home to live in the city, whether or not you feel safe in the city with cars being stolen, with break-ins? Who do you want to lead that city? I'm incredibly invested in the city, and I love this city. And I want to see us do better. I want to see us do everything that we can to help people afford to live in this city, to help people feel safe in this city, to help people feel like they can continue to be a part of this as they grow old. And I know we were talking about career politicians. I just started this job a couple years ago. I didn't look to run for mayor. But I saw an opportunity where I've been learning and growing in this role as a council for the last 2 years and saying, we can get this done, we can do better. And I've worked with so many people at different levels of government to get more funding for housing for our city, because I'm going to continue fighting for you. To get more transit for the city, because I will continue fighting for you. Because I believe we can build more transit, we can build more affordable housing, we can build a better future for everyone in this city. And I need you all to go out and vote, because only 21% of people voted last time. So make sure your voice is heard. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight.
Fantastic. Again, candidates, thank you very much for your comments, your wisdom, your insights, your thoughts, your hopes, and to talking with us all today. Timekeepers, great job. Made my job easier. Okay. On behalf of all of you who are here, I want to again thank the Lakeview Ratepayers Association, the Army, Navy, Air Force building, Orchard Heights, Sherway Homes and Applewood, their ratepayers associations, for their role in this. Hey, if you guys are in a neighborhood, and I'm guessing you are, consider joining your local ratepayer association, okay? It's, those of us, we are volunteers, and all the funding we get really sort of comes from you guys. And of course, so does our guidance on how we should present ourselves at council or for our community. And of course, and I'm just going to repeat what I think all of the candidates have said and certainly feel, is thank you to you guys for coming out, listening. I didn't have to kick one of you out. That's fantastic. I hope that you guys appreciated the questions that were asked, and they answered a lot of yours. But hey, you know what? Maybe if you do have a question, particularly for a specific candidate, as we sort of end the official part now, perhaps with Luann's permission, I invite you to maybe talk to the candidates for a little bit afterwards and meet them, maybe ask a question. before we might have to officially really kick you out of here. Luann, how much time we got? Okay. Luann turns into the boss as of now, and she's giving you some time.
You've got a half an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you again and all.
Thanks so much for your work. Hey, how are you? Good. Exactly. If you look, you can feel.